I love death, metaphorically speaking, but I do love it. I love death and everything. And this video, I'll be talking about an author who made death the center of the story and the movie. I don't know, he romanticized it, I guess. But if you were 13 in 2013, you remember the craze of The Fault in Our Stars. My God. I loved the 2013 to 2016, maybe 15. It was like a 5-year gap where everyone was buying up publishing deals of written books to turn them into movies. And it was all teenage, dystopian, futuristic movies. John Green went the more casual, real route with 2 kids battling cancer. When you're diagnosed with a terminal illness, you have a death sentence given to you, so you are no longer afraid of death. And it can either depress you or it can free you. And it really shows, because this is all through Hazel Grace's perspective, that it really is depressing, but it makes her personality so relatable and so deep for a teenager. All right, let's read a passage. My dad started crying a little. I didn't look over at him, but no one said anything for a long time. So his hiccuping cry was the only sound in the room. I hated hurting him. Most of the time, I could forget about it. But the truth is this. This might be glad to have me around, but I was the alpha and the omega was my parents' suffering. Like, how do you process that as like a teenager? Is she like 16 or 17 and you have to like jump to like thoughts that you would be having at like 80 or 70 when you're like gonna die soon? But she like jumped and skipped forward and is already thinking like that, but she reacts still as a little girl, as a teenager, as a preteen. So it's so like interesting to be so worldly, but like so not, to be still be so naive. Okay, so this was written by a man, and you could tell in some passages and how he didn't really write his male characters good. He wrote the more female characters better and more story to them. He didn't really grasp any emotional value when it comes to men, which is really interesting because he's a white, older, like over 40-year-old man writing about teenagers. He comes from a generation where men were able to express emotions at all, and if they did, they were shunned for it. And I think it comes out in his writing. Because right now, I finished The Fifth Wave. That one's also written by a man, and that one's very obviously written by a man. But that one's so good. Like, I loved it. That's going to be my next review. I already finished it. But right now I'm reading The Host by Stephanie Meyer, the author of all the Twilight series. And it's so nice to hear a woman talk about a woman, or like about men, and how like, and her character in The Host, she has 2 people inside her head, which is like a metaphor for, I guess, for human life. You have your brain and then you have your soul in the back, and you get to pick which one you work with. And you're supposed to be able to work with both at the same time. But hers, it's a human brain and then like an alien in the back. Or it's reversed. It's alien in the back and human in the front. So you get to hear 2 female perspectives and one character. It's so interesting. It's so long, but I can't put it down. I love it. But with this one, I took a break from it and I came back because it is somber, it's sad, it's melancholic. All things I love. It didn't move that quickly. let's see. Chapter 7. I screamed to wake up my parents, and they burst into the room, but there was nothing they could do to dim the supernavic exploding inside my brain. An endless change of fireworks that made me think that I was once and for all glowing, and I told myself, as if I told myself before, that the body shuts down when the pain gets too bad, that consciousness is temporary, that this will pass. Like, this is like, it's a fake story, but this is like such a real story to like real kids and real people. To like have death scares of your own body killing itself and surrendering to it because you've already been through this so many times. It's so like humbling to like not have that happen to you, but knowing that it does happen to people around you. But just like always, I didn't slip away. I was just on the shore with the waves washing over me, unable to drown. That's cool. Okay, I was peeling off my gel nail polish, but okay, I'm back. I watched this movie when it came out in 2013. And I didn't really read the book because I was like 13. Like, I'm not going to understand what the metaphorical spiritual levels that this book was trying to portray. So I was just like, oh yeah, it's a rom-com, boy kiss girl, and boy dies at the end. Does it start off telling you that Augustus like will die? I don't remember. But I like this book because it is written in the human world, 1, so it's like real. 2, you know how the story ends without it telling you. The main character has terminal cancer, so it's 100% that she will not live that long. So they take luck out of their equation and their thoughts. They take the standardized belief of religion and God out of the answer in the thoughts, because I think she even says in this book, like, why me, why this, they talk in statistics. So it's like, I think Hazel Grace is probably like a Virgo, like she's very logical, very like statistical, and she's like, the death rate for this is 80%. For this illness is 80%, and she is part of the 20% that the medication is working and she's keeping her alive. So she has to like battle with like religious and spiritual thoughts and kind of just like bypass them and not believe in any of them. So it's really interesting to hear her like cynicism. Like, she's so cynical and sarcastic, and she loves top model, like she's like very smart and worldly, but she loves trashy reality TV. Like, that's so like funny. And we get to fall in love with Augustus Waters while reading this book. But we never really get to know or understand Augustus Waters because his lines are just like showing off that he's so charismatic and so charming. He's that boyfriend that you want. He's that boyfriend in high school, or that boy in high school that walks down the hallways, and you want him to be your boyfriend. Like, he's everything. He's the perfect white boy American. We're showed to him in his dialogues, which aren't very like exploratory, but I think that makes you fall in love with him because you don't really know that much about him. But he's like very smart, and you're like, when I was reading it, I loved reading it because I felt like a teenage girl reading it. And I didn't really feel that before when I was younger, because I wasn't really like trying to be the character. Like, I wasn't trying to resonate with Hazel Grace, but I was resonating with Hazel Grace. And so every time Augustus talked to her, I like felt the butterflies in my stomach, and I was like, oh my, like I would do like, oh, like I would like have butterflies in my stomach because it was so like romantic and so cute. So it's so cool that like pages on paper have like so much emotion to them. And the reading level is like young. It's for kids or for like preteens. Oh my god, so awkward. I remember when I think this movie came out a few months or a year before Divergent. And in Divergent, Shailene Woodley and Ansel Elgort, is it? Play brothers and sisters in Divergent, but in The Fault in Our Stars, they're like kissing and dating each other. Like, what the heck? It's so funny because in the trailers, well, this DVD was loading, it showed like Divergent. I was like, oh, yes, I forgot they were brothers and sisters. In this movie, they're dating each other. Like, who thought that was a good idea? I miss like cheesy Tumblr. Like there's cool girl, moody, dark, depressed Tumblr, but there was also like cheesy like colors and fonts Tumblr. Like I'm thinking of like Bethany Moda, very like cheesy, very bright, very girly. The last chapter you were like talking about how he was so sick and so sad, and then the next page was like, it's been 11 days since Augustus' death, and you're like, what the fuck? How did this happen? I'm gonna find it. But her also receiving that phone call from Gus's family at like 3 in the morning, knowing she knew the call was coming. It was just she didn't know when it was coming. That when he died and passed away, that was so real. Okay, oh my god, let's go. She was practicing her eulogy to Augustus Waters with him in the room because he wanted to be at his funeral alive. That just says a lot about his character. There are days, many of them, when I resent the size of my unbounded set. I want more numbers than I'm likely to get. In God, I want more numbers for Augustus Waters than he got. But Gus, my love, I cannot tell you how thankful I am for our little infinity. I wouldn't trade it for the world. You gave me a forever within the numbered days, and I'm grateful. That's so sweet. And literally the next page was Augustus Waters died 8 days after his pre-funeral. Like, hope, spoiler alert, but if you're watching, it's obviously a review because I finished it. But when you're like reading a book and you're like anticipating that something's going to happen, his cancer came back, it's in his body, and then the next page is that, you're like, oh my god. You feel so bad for her. But also, you just relate to her because it's everyone's story that if you are, okay, to quote Lana Del Rey, if you're born to die, in the sense that you have a birth date, so you have a death date. It's easy and as simple as that. I guess it's up to you to make those days count in between. But once you know your death date is close, you don't take minuscule bullshit seriously. In that sense, it's a blessing in disguise. This book is simple, it's casual, it's spiritual, it's sweet, and it's young, and it's first love. I looked up some information, millions of books. I think it sold like 20 million books, 20 million times like $20. That's like $400 million. I think that math was horrible, but I done the math because I wanted to see how much this franchise made. The movies, the DVDs, and the book. I think this is like a $200 or $300 million franchise. Just off these two little things. Crazy. But if Hazel Grace taught me anything, she taught me life isn't what it's promised to be. And that's why you should hate it, but that's also why you should love it. I read some theories of The Fault in Our Stars and what happens to Hazel Grace after the book, because it ends like at a landslide or a dead end. So we don't know how Hazel lives off her life, which is a metaphor for life. You don't know when it's going to end. So hers is like an abrupt ending, but it's been theorized that she probably died a few weeks, a few months, maybe a few years after Augustus's. And in the movie, the first shot is her laying on the grass, smiling into the stars, speaking in metaphors about our little infinity. And that's also their last shot. So it's said that that last shot, which was the first shot of the movie too, is actually her dying. And she closes, in the first shot she opens her eyes, and the last shot she closes her eyes. Like that. That's so sweet and it's so simple. Peace out from me and Hazel Grace. You could catch me in a month, in a week, I don't know, when this is posted, but there's also going to be the 5th wave book review coming next. But bye from me and the 2014 girlies.